if you're a new college student that is forced to take out a student loan to attend school, well, you might be getting screwed over more so than those of us already up to our necks in debt, because the cost of loans will be going up again. So according to Bloomberg News, the US government is raising prices for new student debt, adding hundreds of dollars to the cost of the typical federal college loan. Beginning in July, interest rates on new government loans are set to rise by 0.69 percentage point, and this is according to Wednesday figures from the Department of the Treasury. For undergraduates, that could amount to nearly a 20% increase in interest charges. New undergraduate loans from the Department of Education are due to carry an interest rate of 4.45%, up from 3.76% for the academic year ending in June. Rates on some graduate loans are set to rise from 5.31% to 6%, while rates on loans to parents and guardians are due to experience a jump from 6.31% to 7%. For example, the cost of a $10,000 loan would increase by about $400, according to an online calculator maintained by bankrate.com. That may not seem like a lot of money, but the uptick comes on top of a mountain of student debt. After years of tuition hikes by colleges and relative decreases in U.S. grants, more students and their family members are borrowing from the government to finance higher education. As it is, some 44 million Americans collectively owe $1.4 trillion on their student loans, an average of roughly $32,000 per debtor. About 1 in 6 American adults has a student loan. And this right here is why we need tuition-free public colleges and universities, because at this point, this is unsustainable. You have $1 trillion of debt, and think about how that plagues the aggregate economy, because if you have millennials who are getting out of college and they're bogged down by these huge interest rates, they can never pay off their student loans, so they're going to have these student loans for most of their lives. And what's going to happen? They're not going to be able to buy houses. They're not going to be able to buy cars. And that's less money that will go into the economy. And that's problematic for all of us. We should all care about this, even if we don't have student loan debt. I do, but even if you don't, this is an issue that should concern you, because if you take money away from students, even if it's just $400 more, which is a lot, then that means that the purchasing power of ordinary Americans decreases. And when that happens, people are less inclined to spend money. And if you're not spending money, then the economy stagnates. But when normal Americans spend money, when they go to stores, they buy Xboxes, they buy cars, they buy iPods. I'm dating myself now by saying iPods, but when ordinary Americans spend money, that helps the economy. So if you increase the purchasing power of the middle and lower class and the working class, then that will create jobs. It will stimulate the economy, because those businesses will then make more money. They'll hire people. They'll expand. And this is economics 101. So I shouldn't have to explain it, but I mean, this is something that affects all of us. So if you don't have student loan debt, you should be right alongside all of us fighting, because if more and more students come out of college with this crippling level of debt, then we're all going to suffer. And this is a bubble that is unsustainable. It's bound to pop, because you can't have this level of debt. It's unsustainable. It's going to inhibit economic growth. And my generation, we've just been screwed over like no other, because the government, it doesn't subsidize education like it used to. And so what happens is, when the government doesn't subsidize education as much, what happens? Well, then tuition hikes go up. Now, there are a ton of other factors. So of course, that's an oversimplification, but what matters is that tuition hikes are going up. You could debate me on the cause of that, but they're going up, and it's hurting normal Americans. And in this day and age, in an economic climate where you almost have to get a college education if you want to find a good paying job, we're basically backed into a corner, and we're forced to take on this debt. This is one of many areas that the American public, they just continue to get screwed. And as someone with so much student debt, it's honestly scary. When I really sit back and think about it, I kind of freak out because it's really, it's scary. You just don't know if you can ever pay off that much debt. And with how high interest rates are, man, we're just screwed. Now, of course, there's the conservative libertarian argument that, well, why'd you take out the loans? So the problem with this argument is that even if you're poor enough to qualify for Pell Grants, and that subsidizes the entire cost of tuition, you still may not have enough money for books. You still may not have enough money to survive, for gas to commute to school, for public transport. You don't have enough money to live. So, that loan makes it so that way you can survive, and it also helps to subsidize the living expenses that we have. It helps to feed us. So for me, loans were crucial for me to survive, because I wasn't making enough money with my job, even though I was working more than 35 hours per week and, over 40 hours if I was lucky. And it's just not enough. And the people who say that, they're just detached from the struggle that ordinary Americans have to go through. So this is not acceptable. This is really disappointing news. And I feel so heartbroken, when I see all of these optimistic graduates. They leave college or they leave high school and they're getting ready to enter college and they see what's ahead of them. I feel so bad for them. I have nieces and nephews right now that are graduating high school and they're going into college, and it's heartbreaking. We're crushing the next generation.
Support this podcast by joining the independent progressive media revolution today at humanistreport.com.